pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with yet another spin on the page 112 tag. This is the Women's Prize Long List version. In this version, I have chosen 3 page 112s from 3 of the titles on the long list, and I know what they are, and I've kind of studied them for, spent a few minutes reading them and evaluating them before I present them to you. I'm going to tell you what they are before I read them. I'm going to tell you my preconceptions before I'd read or studied them, and I'm going to decide which of them I'm most interested in reading based on the page 112. You can garner your own opinion on it and match that up with whatever preconceptions you had. So I have chosen 3. The first is the novel from India that's on the list, When I Hit You, or A Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife, by Meena Kandasamy. This one sounded really interesting, but I felt, just from what I'd heard of it, that maybe it wasn't going to be a novel for me. It's about domestic abuse, so it's about a very important and serious topic, of course. But issue-oriented fiction tends to leave me a bit cold. It doesn't often hold up literarily in terms of my snobbish tastes, so I expected that I probably wouldn't like it, while recognizing how important it is to have fiction circulating in our culture about this important issue, and it's such a dire, from what I understand, and I don't know, pretend to be an expert, but it's an even more dire emergency in India. So here is page 112. We are supposed to go to a protest meeting. I'm getting dressed. It's the first time I'm leaving home in 2 weeks, so I wear kohl and a touch of lipstick. Don't expect that you will one day earn the trust of the working-class women if you strut around with your lipstick and handbag. They will mistake you for a prostitute. Is the prostitute not a working woman? I knew it was coming. I knew I had tempted fate, but I just couldn't resist. He flies into a rage, tearing my bag from my shoulder and hurling it against the wall. Not a prostitute like you, not a petty bourgeois prostitute like you. Under communism there will be no prostitution. Under communism a petty bourgeois woman like you will have to give up her petty bourgeois privileges. The lipstick will not survive the new democratic revolution. The lipstick that costs 300 rupees is not something that society needs. The lipstick that is more than the weekly wage of a tribal woman in Chhattisgarh exists only because it allows petty bourgeois bitches to send the signal that they are on heat and ready to barter their sexual availability in exchange for favors. The lipstick is a symbol of this transaction and this availability. There is nothing beautiful about it. I am on the verge of tears. He sees this, and, fearing that we'll be late for the meeting, he changes his tone. He begins to pacify me, begins to pull out other reasons to support his anti-lipstick crusade. He tells me I am the victim of a cosmetics industry trying to sell me back the confidence it has stolen from me. He tells me that I am a very beautiful woman, and that I do not need anything to be added to my face, least of all anything that capitalism has decreed as good. Knowing that this berating and patronizing will never cease, I throw my lipstick in the bin. I rub off the purple of my lips on my dupatta. This temporarily shuts him up. He appears smug and triumphant. We leave for the protest, 2 perfect comrades. The revolution is just around the corner. Okay, so what did you think of that? I liked it a lot more than I expected I would. I thought this was a strong piece of writing. It still doesn't give me a sense of whether the entire novel would be for me, but the writing is strong. It has a lot of energy. I already knew that this was a upper class relationship, not middle class, not lower class, but upper class, and that the husband was some kind of a political theorist or a politician or something. And that comes through. The argument that they have strikes me as very realistic between those characters. It really is a set piece, page 112. This is from an ebook, so it's just the luck of the font size, but the revolution is just around the corner. I thought was a really strong way to end. It's just kind of standalone passage. Obviously, from one page, you can't really get a sense of how deeply the characters are drawn or anything, so I have no idea, and this is a very dialogue-heavy, but it is a strong piece of writing, so I'm impressed. The next book that I've chosen is Rachel Seifert's A Boy in Winter, and I expected that I would like this book. Didn't know how much I would like it, but it's a Holocaust story or World War II story set in the Ukraine, but it's very much about the Holocaust that was perpetrated on the Ukrainians by the Nazis under occupation. And I heard that the writing is quite good. I've heard some mixed reactions to the novel as a whole, but I expected this would be one that I would like. So, here is page 112. I was sent only to find you, nothing more. You need to speak to the Sturmbannführer directly, so we will go to him now. Was that an order? It sounded like one. The soldier is already walking to his jeep. Refusal is not something he expects. I'll drive ahead, he tells Pole. You follow. It will be faster. He says all this over his shoulder. Pole had been expecting to walk the usual site route, conduct the usual inspection of works, which this man wouldn't understand in any case. But now it seems he must climb back into his car, most probably return to the town, and Pole does not want to go there, even less with an SS man. Your foreman will drive, the soldier calls, and Pole is grateful for that much, at least, for Brodnick's company. But the drive back to the town is interminable. Pole has to wait before he can speak freely. Brodnick takes the wheel and updates him on the morning first, in case Arnold asks them. How many laborers are still laid up, and how many are back at work? The damp and cold have led to influenza, not helped by the cheek-by-jowl living quarters. In the town yesterday morning, Pole starts. You should know this before we get there. But Brodnick stops him, shaking his head, pointing through the windscreen at the SS man in the car ahead of them. He already told me, he says. And then, I know what they do. They did this in my hometown, too. Pole thinks Brodnick must have seen the same thing he did, the shouting and hurting. Are they doing the same thing everywhere they get to? Okay, well, I thought that was really strong writing, too. It didn't knock me off my chair, didn't throw me onto the ground with the power of the prose, but I thought it was very strong, and certainly creates ominous atmosphere. That was palpable to me as I read it, filling the blanks with what I know of the story, and they're alluding to some kind of a massacre or a mass roundup of Jewish Ukrainians or something along those lines. I could feel the fear palpably. This just confirms my feeling about this novel. It doesn't make me more excited or less excited. It just kind of, yeah, okay, I think I'm going to like it. And the last novel is by Sarah Schmidt, See What I Have Done. This is the Lizzie Borden novel. And I've heard such mixed reviews of this. I think everybody has agreed that it's well written. Maybe not, but I don't know what the lack of consensus is about in detail, but it's a historical novel based on Lizzie Borden. I'm not in love with that topic, so I kind of think it's not going to be a Sean book, particularly, but I am going to try it. I have it available to me on Scrib, both in audio and ebook format. Yeah, I'm going to try it, but I don't really care about the Lizzie Borden story, and it's probably going to, obviously going to be quite violent in at least one chapter, but lots of people love it, so here is page 112. Father shrugged. They'll charge me an arm and a leg to fix my eyes. Some things are worth the money, Father. Emma shouldn't have spoken to Father that way. I should have been good and told her to watch her caustic tongue, remind her what he could be like. But Father shook his head, laughed like a good time. I suppose you might be right. Mrs. Borden would agree with me, I'm sure, Emma said, seemed pleased with herself. Yes, well, I'll have Abby take me one of these days. Very well, Father. Emma patted Father on the back again. I thought of her touching my shoulders now, the way I would want her to make me feel comforted. She'd warm my blood, erase numb feelings. She'd never leave me alone in a house again. Emma makes everything better. The men continued to speak. I hoped one of them was massaging Father's shoulders the way Emma would, the way I might have done. There were voices in the sitting room, voices in the kitchen, voices above me, a muffle and dragging feet. Everything louder than it should. A hand grabbed my wrist. The officer stared. "Miss, are you all right? You were talking to yourself. Should I summon the doctor again?" I looked around the dining room. A face, then a face, then a face, all in my direction. One of the officers had a crooked mouth, the kind that ran through Mrs. Borden's family. The officer blank smiled at me, a grim tooth shooting over his lip. Mrs. Borden had smiled at me like this before. My head ached. I rubbed my forehead. The tip of my tongue shivered. "I want Emma." "Yes," I said. "Yes, you had better fetch him." And the officer went to Dr. Bowen. Okay, I do like that. That is really good writing. That one is maybe the most surprising of the three. I was really drawn in. I thought the writing was quite enigmatic, and I did go to Wikipedia to get some of who these people are. Emma is Lizzie's sister, I forget, maybe older sister? Sister anyway. And Mrs. Borden is their stepmother, and they addressed her as Mrs. Borden throughout the years that they were all together as a family. And the father refers to her as Abby. That's Mrs. Borden. That's the stepmother to Lizzie and Emma. Now I'm assuming that the reference to the officer at the end is that Lizzie's having a kind of mental flashbacks. Maybe she's having a nervous breakdown, I don't know, but she's not a well woman mentally, and that the police are there and that she's at home, but she's maybe kind of hallucinating or something. I really like the description of the officer with a crooked mouth, the kind that ran through Mrs. Borden's family. That was one of my favorite. He blank smiled at me, a grim tooth shooting over his lip. Those are the expressions that really impressed me. So no, I think the writing is good. I still don't know whether it's a book that I will enjoy, but if I bail on it or if I don't like it, it's not going to be because of the writing. So basically, this page 112 tag has made me more interested in the Sarah Schmidt and more interested in the Kandasamy, and didn't move the needle up or down with respect to the Seifert. I still think I might like the Seifert better. It would still be my first pick. On the strength of the writing alone, the Sarah Schmidt, Lizzie Borden novel would be my second pick, and the Kandasamy would be a third, but it would be almost on par with Sarah Schmidt in terms of the writing is strong. So we'll see. So what would be your picks? Which of these three would you be most interested in? And did experiencing page 112 change your interest in any of them? And if so, up or down? This was fun. I may, if I can get access to another 3 page 112s from the long list, I may do one more tag like this for the Women's Prize long list. With thanks to Peg, the book prize addict, I am going to do a totally blind version of this tag for the International Booker Prize long list, and that should be within the next few days as well, so look for that. She has sent me the page 112s, and we've done it the blind way, so I'll keep you in suspense until the end of the video, and I won't know until the end of the video which books I'm evaluating. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.